Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for being here with me. We'll now begin our story of Jacob and Esau. So let's get there. Just bear with me a second. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Before we start, I'd like to ask, what are some things you argue with about your brother or sister? Do you ever get upset with them because they have something you want? Our lesson today is about two brothers who argued over a bowl of stew. How silly is that? You will see how both of them were very selfish, thinking only of themselves. Let's see what the Bible has to say about them and what we can learn. Okay, so Isaac is the father of both Jacob and Esau. He was 40 years old when he married his wife Rebekah, and they were married for 20 years and they didn't have any children. So when Rebekah became pregnant, she was at least 60 years old. And that's quite old. I mean, that's probably the age of most of your grandparents. But she wanted children, and so did Isaac. So they were very, very happy. One day, God spoke to Rebekah about her baby. First, God told her that there wouldn't be just one baby, but there were going to be two. And second, God told her that the two boys would grow up and their descendants would become two strong nations. Jacob and Esau were born when Isaac was 60. Because Esau was born first, he was considered the oldest, or firstborn son. As the firstborn, he would be given twice as much of his father's goods as Jacob after Isaac would pass away. So then the custom of giving twice as much to the oldest son was called the birthright. And that's an unusual term that we don't use that much anymore. But a birthright, not only did it entitle the oldest son to a double portion of his father's goods, like when a double inheritance, but a birthright also imparted purpose, honor, and direction for the future of the family. So the oldest son, he got more respect, he got more honor, he got twice as much material possessions like animals and houses and all sorts of things, but he also got to decide the future of the family, which is a big scenario. Okay, and when you think about a birthright, let's think about Isaac, the father. So years before Esau naturally inherited his birthright, as the firstborn, God had promised to bless Abraham, and Abraham blessed his son Isaac with this same blessing. So it's kind of a big deal. But let's talk about the boys. From the beginning, they were very different. For one thing, they didn't look anything alike. Jacob was smooth-skinned, and Esau had lots of red hair all over his body. As the brothers grew up, they became different in even more ways. Esau became a very skillful hunter and loved to be outdoors, and Jacob enjoyed staying closer to home and doing things around the house like cooking. Most parents try very hard not to have favorite children. But Esau became Isaac's favorite son, and Jacob became Rebekah's. So the father, his favorite was the oldest son, and the mother, her favorite was the younger son. And I'm sure that this made the children unhappy and maybe jealous of one another. One day after Esau had been out hunting, he came home to find that Jacob had fixed a pot of stew that had a red color to it. He was so very hungry that he thought he was starving to death. So he asked Jacob for some of the stew. As we know, Jacob should have been kind and he should have shared, because we know that we're supposed to share with one another. Jacob did tell Esau he could have some stew if Esau would trade his birthright for it. So, he's asking for something it's a ridiculous ask to, want your oldest brother to give away his inheritance, basically, for a bowl of stew. But that's exactly what Esau did. Esau was foolish. And he decided his birthright was not as important as having something to eat right that minute. So Esau traded Jacob his birthright for something to eat. And Jacob was also very selfish because he would not share the stew with his brother. And Esau was being selfish because he was thinking only for himself. He didn't have any right to sell or trade away his birthright. It was a blessing that's been passed down through God. Both brothers were thinking only of themselves, and God's not happy with us when we're selfish. He wants us to share what we have with others. And some of the things we can share, amongst our personal things like toys and food and things, he wants us to share his message as well. So, you know, he wants us to share, and he wants us to give things to others without expecting anything in return. Because, that's what he did with his son, and that's what Jesus did for us. I mean, he gave his life on Calvary, not expecting anything from us, and it was just a tremendous blessing. But, ultimately, when we look at this story, God allowed both of these boys to make the wrong decision, and he also allowed the parents to make these wrong decisions by having favorites. And then we're going to study next week. We're going to find out that in the end, there was some more trickery going on. But, God allowed this to happen. He allowed Jacob eventually to inherit that birthright, even though, and I probably should page this up. Just give me a second. He allowed Jacob to trick his brother and to get that birthright, because he knew that Jacob was going to be fit for the next step and the next things that were going to happen in their lives. So I thank you for joining me, and we'll pick up next week with the remainder of this story. It gets pretty interesting. In fact, there's even more trickery in here. I think you'll enjoy it. So have a great day, guys, and remember, please keep God first in your lives. Please keep Jesus first in your lives, and let's do things that honor God and that honor Jesus and that are pleasing to Him. Let's not be selfish. Let's be good to one another. That's it, guys, for now. Talk to you later. Bye.